Welcome back, guys. This is Skidgy. The self-proclaimed messiah Jim Jones once said, "I love socialism, and I'm willing to die to bring it about. But if I did, I'd take 1,000 with me." Those are the words of the man who gave cyanide-laced Kool-Aid to over 900 people on November 18th, 1978 in Jonestown, Guyana. Let's go back 2,500 years to visit the Greek philosopher and mathematician Pythagoras of Samos, a man who is arguably the father of mathematics, who discovered the geometrical equation that now bears his name, the Pythagorean theorem. He was also the founder and leader of a highly devoted, incredibly secret sect that was obsessed with mysticism of mathematics. Pythagoras said, "There is a good principle which created order, light, and man, and an evil principle which created chaos, darkness, and woman." Fast forward to Hollywood, summer of 1969, to the middle of a killing spree that has spanned over 4 different locations in the greater Los Angeles area. The man in charge? No other than the notorious Charles Manson, leader of the Manson family. Manson once said, "You have to accept yourself as God. You have to realize you're just the devil just as much as you are God, that you're everything and you're nothing at all." Waco, Texas, February 20th, 1993. "If the Bible is true, then I'm Christ." Words of David Koresh, leader of the Branch Davidians. Him and his loyal following have been holed up in Mount Carmel stronghold. A shootout with ATF has left 4 agents and 6 Davidians dead. A nerve agent has been pumped into the stronghold to flush out Koresh and his following. In the process, a sudden fire has broken out and began to engulf the compound. The ensuing pandemonium leaves 79 people dead.
We have for you a taut, white-knuckle saga of dogged perseverance and unimaginable loss. A story about the blooming energy of love and the madness that is sure to follow. We take you to a world within our world, a place perverse and alien as a blood-red moon on a starless night, a world where you keep no photos of the ones you love because it unnerves you. They are a reminder that your life is but a ghost, flickering over and over on an antique projector. You're forced to have unequivocal faith in something or someone you may or may not agree with, something that you might not even believe in. But it's a way of life now, a prison of the mind. You and your family live beneath a veil of secrets protected by strict rules your society upholds. It's dictated by the clothing you wear and the diet and traditions you are forced to keep. It's all you know, and all you're ever gonna know. Unless you run. Ladies and gentlemen, we give you Jason Wolfe.
Yeah, so I'm 18 and Dorchester, South Boston. Walking down my driveway one night, and it was a tough one. Didn't know if I was going to come back, and decided to run back in the house and grab a backpack. Threw a few things in there, not a whole lot. Got out into the dark, snuck out, made sure my parents, nobody else saw. Probably around 11 o'clock, no place to go. Didn't know what I was doing. Just angry and walking. Went south, headed toward Quincy. Decided to head to a T-stop. By the time I got there, it was closed. Still didn't have a destination. Not a lot to do. Just knew I didn't want to go back where I was coming from. I was also scared to leave. Didn't know why. I was too scared to go back home because I'd already made the choice to walk out. I knew people were waiting. Wasn't going to be at work the next day. A couple hours later, I woke up probably around 4 a.m. in a bush. And wandered toward the T-stop. Waited for it to open. And had enough change to get to the airport. Rode the train in, wondering if the decision was right or wrong, or a whole lot of things going on. A lot of it was a blur. A lot of it was crystal clear, and I couldn't decide which one was which. Got to the airport. I knew at least it would be warm. Place to think. If nothing else, I could collect the carts, bring them back to the gate, get 25 cents a piece, occupy my time. Around 7:30, I decided to grab a payphone, call my uncle in Virginia. Didn't know exactly what I was going to say or ask, but he knew more than I did, because when I called and didn't really have a reason, he knew I was trying to get away. And the next thing he said was, "When can you be on a plane?" I told him I was at the airport, so anytime. And he bought a ticket, told me to go to the counter, pick it up, will call, whatever it was back then. And got my ticket, ended up at the right gate somehow. Been a long time since I'd been on a flight, but got on the plane, terrified, sat in my seat, convinced something really bad was about to happen. I wasn't sure if it was much worse than where I was coming from, what I was running away from. I knew I had to go, but I didn't know if it was the last thing I'd ever do or not. Got on the plane, the doors closed, push away from the gate, take off, terrible, stomach in knots. We get up, I don't know, whatever cruising altitude is, and I was in the back of the plane. Fear was gradually consuming me as I realized we were further away from Earth, farther to fall, in case we did. Started shaking, probably had been the whole time. But it ended up being to the degree that when the stewardesses came back with their cart, the shaking was uncontrollable. I couldn't order a drink. They asked what was wrong. Told them it was okay. One of them said it's clearly not okay. And then I told them to see if anything was going wrong, and if it ever did, open up the door and throw me out, and everything would be fine after. They really began to wonder if I was okay. Looking back, it's kind of weird. Interesting.
Yeah.
But that's where I was at, and it was real at that moment.
To remove you from the plane and everything would be fine. That you were the problem.
Yes.
Anything, you know.
But I was the problem in life. I was the problem for myself and everyone else around me.
What did the stewardess say anything to you? Did they say, like,
No, they didn't know what to say. But one of them sat down next to me, looked at the other one, shook her head, and the other one took the cart. And she said, "It's going to be okay. You'll be all right." It was probably the first look of genuine compassion that I had seen in a while, where I knew, at least here in this seat next to this person, it's okay, but it might not be okay. And if it's not, it's definitely my fault and my problem.
Right.
So
But
I probably shouldn't be on this plane.
When you were shaking, though, did a stewardess ask you any questions with why you were shaking?
Yeah. It
Were
was
you-
more like,
Were you trying to get away from
what's
something?
wrong?
Are you trying to get away from something? Did you?
Well, I mean, to use the parallel, which was very vivid then, was the biblical Jonah that was running away from whatever his mission was and ended up on a boat, and then the storms came. So I assumed my plane was my boat and the storms were going to come and I needed to get thrown out. Except I wasn't in the sea, I was up in the air.
All right. Well, with this story that we just started with, you were shaking uncontrollably. You were scared. You were young.
You were running.
You were running from something. What were you running from?
Jason, what were you running from?
I had technically become an adult, but I was a child.
Okay.
What I was running from was my reality and what I wished was my past and what I wished wasn't real.
Right.
It was a resentment of what I had grown up in, what was currently controlling me, and more so how I didn't know how to get out of.
Let's
I
give
was
it.
running away from something I didn't know how to get away from.
And what was that thing that you grew up in?
What was this thing you grew up in?
Just call it what it is.
So the thing was a commune, a cult, something, a group my parents joined when I was young, 6. And I had spent the time since I was 6 till 18 growing up in. So I became a teenager.
What type of cult was it?
Religious based, like most are, but Christian roots. And
It's like a Judeo-Christian mashup, right?
yeah, they
Was it a doomsday? Was it a what kind of cult was it? A doomsday?
Is it a hippie, doomsday, military complex?
Yeah.
I'd say a combination of hippie roots and a little bit doomsday, because anytime you disagree or dissent,
Yeah.
it's wrong and all hell's going to break loose on you specifically.
Wow.
The goal of it was ultimately for the Christian faith base of bringing Christ back. Except that,
Their goal was to bring Christ back.
yes.
So you guys
Except
thought
we're
that was
the
in
one-
your hands.
Yeah,
You guys were the sole responsibility of bringing Christ back.
absolutely.
Wow.
And if we didn't, nobody did. And if you didn't do your job in order to make that happen, you were responsible for everything.
What was the name of this cult?
It's gone through a couple different names. Currently, they call themselves the 12 Tribes. When my parents joined, it was called the Northeast Kingdom Community Church in northern Vermont.
Okay.
And then they gradually assumed the broader term of the 12 Tribes.
I've
for the
also
purpose.
heard it referred to in its Genesis phases as the vine.
Yeah, that was in Tennessee before it moved up to northern Vermont.
Chattanooga.
Yep.
And one of the sort of slang names I feel like it was given from those not involved is something that I read about called the Yellow Deli cult.
Yeah.
So the Yellow Deli was just a group of restaurants that the group ran.
Okay.
And,
At the 12 tribes of Israel.
Yeah, so people associated that closely, first of all in Tennessee, and then as it spread out in northern Vermont.
So that was one of the money-making ventures of the group.
The 12 tribes, yeah.
Yes, but it was more a means of outreach and evangelism than it was money-making.
Interesting.
Dual
Yeah,
purpose.
So they used it as like a forward operating base to branch into new territories.
Yeah.
And they would use this deli. Can you tell us about this deli? I read something that it was sort of like, it was sometimes in college towns, kind of like had a stoner vibe to it.
It's different everywhere, and it's taken on different names depending on where it was at.
Based
So it
on
changes.
demographic.
Yeah, so in Tennessee, it was started as the Yellow Deli, and there were 7 of them in Chattanooga before they got essentially run out and ended up going up to northern Vermont.
Okay.
Then they turned it into the Common Ground or Common Sense were the 2 brand names that they developed and opened multiple places. And then originally going back to the roots of the Yellow Deli, started opening places called the Yellow Deli again. And with the old time feel, kind of homey Hobbit type.
Huh. That's
Would
interesting.
they strike up conversations with people that came and ate there and kind of use that to like
Like
you
a
said,
recruiting technique.
evangelism? Like,
Yeah.
So everything was recruiting / evangelism.
any
There you go.
interaction.
Every
And
interaction, yeah.
the interaction was dependent on the person doing it. Some people were more forward, some people were
Right.
genuine
Got it.
about what they were doing there. Some people didn't really know what they were doing in that. Like a server there may or may not be the most evangelistic, so
Okay.
kind of played a subtle line, but ultimately the main purpose was to be this outreach point where people could come find.
Wow. All right. Was there a hierarchy? Like once you're in the cult, is there a hierarchy? Are there people above you? Are there leaders? Are there
Deacons,
elders, anything like that? Like who's the main? I think I read his name was Eugene Spriggs, I believe.
Yeah, so the main leader was a man and his wife that started the group, Albert Eugene Spriggs, currently called Unique in the group. His wife's name is Marcia. And as it developed, there ended up being a somewhat of an elder-based system, or an apostolic order, they called it. And,
Okay.
that started with him, and it was more the subgroup from him supporting him than him telling everybody that he was the ultimate.
Oh, so he kind of like
It was like a subtle way of getting into it.
right.
Mm-hmm.
So if you talk to him, you might think, oh man, this guy's really cool. And then you meet the people under him that are supporting him, and you're like,
Yeah.
whoa, where does that come from?
Yeah.
But they're the ones holding him in this.
Would you
Aspects.
describe him as charismatic?
Yeah, charismatic and captivating.
You've met him, right?
Yeah,
Multiple times.
absolutely. I lived
Wow.
with him, grew
Okay.
up with him.
Wow. Okay.
The charismatic aspect is, it's kind of like that of a preacher that doesn't go away. You don't walk away from it. It's constantly there. And the influence is a 24/7, 365 influence. It captivates your life. It's your entirety. It's everyone around you's entirety. So it builds a environment, which is what their aim is to do, is build this. I mean, the name of the group is THE, Apostolic Order, which stands for Therapeutic Healing Environment. I mean, that's their IRS registration.
Yeah, I've seen it described as that.
Wow.
Instead of a religious organization, they've been described as a therapeutic.
Yeah, like therapy. That's always a loophole, man. That's clever.
It's clever, and what's ironic about it is that there's people in the group that are 100% genuine about what they're doing and what they stand for.
Okay.
And then there's the premise of the group and what they're expected to do and forced to do that creates an opposing force.
Got it.
And that's to repress one's true self, right?
Right.
Because that was the...
Well, it feels that way
Yeah,
to
they
me, and that's what I experienced and spent decades of my life in, trying to reconcile, and never came to the reconciliation that this was in fact genuine and going somewhere.
Because there are those people that are totally believing what they're doing is the right thing, and they believe in the faith, and they really do want to
They buy
better
into it.
society,
Yeah.
and they want to bring about these changes. But then there is a greater force surrounding them, and those who aren't genuine, and they it oppresses people.
Mm-hmm. It does.
And maybe they have different motives, right?
It's hard to tell because every time you question someone's motives that's in that authority structure, the person questioning is put under and squashed.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Which to
You
me
can't have
further
that.
supports
You can't,
the,
yeah, dude. It's just like any other like
corporation,
or even you can date back to the medieval times. If anybody oppressed the king, you were killed.
If you question, you cannot question the structure.
Correct.
That is dangerous.
So the very fact of doubting was publicly demonized
Yeah.
in social settings. That if you doubt, you're a doubter and something's wrong with you if you doubt, much less question. Which was a problem that I came to, is that I got the fortitude enough to start questioning first to my parents in my young teenage years.
So you were open about you were like, Mom, Dad, I don't like this. This is not right.
Yeah, but it wasn't just, oh, hey, this isn't really cool. It
Right.
was crisis moments where things came out, and it was like, this isn't right, and I thought I was going to die over questioning.
Could you get into just a little scenario of
Maybe where doubt
where-
entered your mind?
Yeah, where doubt entered your mind. Why? What happened to put doubt in your mind? Like a situation that happened, and you were like,
Yeah, so there was an elder whose name was Bill Hinchliffe, and he ran the Boston group for the most part, and just wasn't a very good person. And I could read through it. I knew that his leadership techniques and skills weren't genuine, that he was doing things different than what he was saying. He was calling people out, publicly humiliating them for things that he wasn't doing himself. And it just didn't add up. And I went to my parents, to my mom specifically, because I felt a certain connection there that she would agree. I was like, hey, why are we supposed to listen to him and do what he says? Because...
Yeah, what makes him the authority?
No, I knew that he was the authority. It was more what gives him credibility. Even though he supposedly has it, why should I give him credibility?
I see through it.
But there was no, I shouldn't be asking, why would I give credibility? He has it because something else happened, ultimately because God put him there. And the same thing with the leader.
Wow.
So
Divine right.
When there's divine right or God puts somebody there, then you can't question. You're not supposed to.
Can't
And if
question
you
the
do,
Pope.
you're coming
Nope,
directly
can't
against
ever.
God.
No.
Can't question that
Can't
shit.
question
I
that.
was put here. I was selected for
I am
this
here
role.
for a reason. Yeah.
Don't worry about what I'm doing. Worry about what you're doing.
Exactly.
So you started doubting that credibility.
Yeah, and it was more... It was on an individual basis, but then it started becoming on a whole basis. Like, what are we doing as a group? Like, you all sold your business, sold your house, your property, joined this thing. Why? Now I'm 15 years old, and some guy over here is telling us what to do, making our lives miserable, doesn't have credibility, and whoever our leader is who's talking to God on a daily basis supports him. Where's this all going, and how did we get here?
Wow. At the age of 15, you started feeling like that.
Well, it was really before that.
Wow.
At 10 was when I started having deep questions and having interactions with things that drew.
Would you say you were the rule or the exception to the rule, having concerns that early?
Probably the rule.
Okay, so you believe that a lot of people, or like even the kids surrounding you, were thinking, this doesn't add up. This isn't.
Yeah, and what it
something's
ended
wrong
up
here.
at is that I had friends as I grew up with that didn't agree and left the group when they were 17 or 18 and started their lives where I didn't.
Yeah.
Because I bought in maybe a little bit deeper. I wanted what we were saying to be true.
Oh, you wanted it. Just, yeah, I get
But
it.
I also didn't have a context for it.
Yeah.
There was no development of my personality and my person in humanity. It was like,
It was
this is what you're raised to be.
Their whole purpose in that cult is to stifle your personality. You become like a robot.
No, it's to form it.
Okay, form your personality.
Deform,
yeah.
you said.
To form it.
To form it.
To
okay.
form it into that, right. Okay, wow.
To be in supportive of what the end goal is, which is essentially, you use the term robot, but yes.
And the issue, not the issue, but big thing for me, like you said, with context is like you only have one source to cite from, and that's 12 tribes and the ideology and what you grew up in, and it's all you know.
Yeah.
There is no other.
The only other that you know about is what's talked about in the 12 tribes and everything else in the world, which is evil and why everyone else is going to hell.
Everything else, everyone's going to hell, but everyone
We'll use college for an example. Higher education is evil. It's wicked. If you don't have a ticket to hell before you start going to college, you'll get one after the first day.
Wow.
Really a system to keep you from that education to really...
You end up with judgmental
They would go to
patterns.
They were going to serious lengths to, once you join that community, to never get out. Correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
All right.
So they have an open door policy, quote unquote.
It's
But
not.
the fear and the guilt that's associated with leaving keeps anybody from leaving. There are a few that don't really buy in as deep to start with, so walking out isn't the end of the world.
Right.
But the ones that do buy in, or some that have grown up there, and
It's almost like they figured, they're like, oh my God, they figured us out. And they're leaving. We can't let that happen.
Yeah, but they already knew that.
Okay.
They knew that they were going to want to leave, and so they had that figured out too.
Okay.
They have these mechanisms
So
in
they're
place.
constantly
Got it.
talking about, if you have doubt, there's something wrong with you. You're constantly conditioned to stay subjected to something that you disbelieve or goes against your own heart and conscience.
Whoa.
That's for me personally, and I believe it to be true for most people, unless you completely sell out to this ideal that goes against some fundamental human
I want to talk
nature.
about selling out and doubt. Really love that you brought up that term because I was going to talk about that anyways. You talked a little bit about your mom in a preliminary discussion that we had in her doubt.
I did. From the time when I was younger and I started expressing things in the 10 to 15 age range, I could sense that she had a certain doubt that she carried with her.
Mm-hmm.
You could see it in her eyes.
I could see it in
Was
her
she
eyes.
scared?
I knew it in situations where things would happen, someone would say something, and I could see her response to it.
You could tell
and
her
I knew
reactions.
that
Yeah.
her response was one of clamming up
Mm-hmm.
and turning inward. I wanted to meet her where she turned inward because I felt like that's where I could meet the reality of where I was at.
Yeah.
And I attempted to do that over the years.
A common ground. Yeah.
A common ground, but she was also conditioned to not question. So when I questioned to her, she would deny her own questioning. So the security never really was secure.
Wow.
But I knew it was there. And then there was a certain point where I knew that she no longer doubted, or she sold out to it and made the determination that I'm not going to doubt.
Wow.
Do you know what that instance was? The moment where she sold out?
I don't know the exact moment.
Maybe it was a gradual thing. Perhaps
I think
not
it was
like
gradual.
an
I
instant.
think that she may have realized at a certain point that I've gone in so deep with this.
What?
I mean, I wonder that now with my parents, if they're
This is all
in
that
their
remains.
60s,
Yeah.
that we don't have a choice to make anything different. I ask them that every chance I get, which isn't very often, if they're still all in on this, or would they make the same decision again? And they say yes, but I think after time I said the same things.
Could you just give us a day in the life
Yeah.
of as when you woke up to when you went to bed? Just like a brief synopsis of how your day went being a member of this cult at the age of
Well, you've been working since you were Since like wee kid, right?
Yeah.
I was going to say the day since when I was 10 or when I was 20 or when I was 30, those are drastically different.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to
situations.
narrow it down here.
Sure. Let's get it right in the dead center.
Yeah, we'll go.
You joined up when you were 6, and you were in it till you were
18, and then he came. Yeah.
Then he left.
So I'll start when I was mid-20s.
Sure.
I'd been married, got married at 22, had our first child a year later, second 2 years after that. Life then was waking up. We had church service twice a day. There was, where we lived in Colorado at that point, was a house plus some outbuildings, all on the same couple-acre property. And we would all get together at 6 in the morning for our service. And at that point, everybody was supposed to be in unity. And that unity was a brotherhood, like we're all in, we're all doing this.
Mm-hmm.
There was anything but that in that environment. I had run away from the commune in New York to Colorado because of dissension that I had in New York. And I ended up moving to Colorado because my family lived there. But it was also like a means of diversion. So I landed in Colorado.
Right.
And I ended up finding the same thing that I ran away from in a different form.
Got it.
So daily was getting up, and if I was fortunate enough to have to leave before the 6 o'clock service for work, I'd head out to work, get in the van, but you had to get approval to leave early, to not be there.
To leave where? Is it a compound or
Was it a house?
Well, there it was a little bit of a compound, but it was a house and a couple garages, but an open driveway, and it said "Welcome to the community."
Are there
Colorado.
other like neighbors nearby that are not part of the group?
Yeah, we had neighbors.
Okay,
but
cool.
Not really that I knew.
Okay, yeah.
Some
Why
places
would you?
we did.
Yeah.
Well, there we didn't have a lot of close neighbors. It was kind of a
Exactly,
weird area in town.
Mm-hmm.
A little secluded.
Other places we had close neighbors.
Like
and I
Boston,
knew the
right?
neighbors. In
Because
Boston.
you lived in the city.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
In
Tom and
plain
June.
sight as a.
But we'll get to that.
Yeah.
We'll get to that. So yeah, you would get, you have to get permission to leave, go to work.
To go to work before the service, and then you had to leave a half an hour before so that you were gone and away and outside of a certain vicinity. I kind of broke rules here and there.
Of course.
I also put myself in a position where I was needed for what I did. I was industrious, ran a lot of the businesses.
What is it that you did? I mean, what
was
your
your
job?
what was your craft
Everything.
in this cult? What was your craft?
Everything. We ran construction companies. As a young kid, my dad was had a tree company in Boston, and we did that, tree work. And
Wow.
then he became an electrician. So did myself and brothers. And then I also grew up we did general building and construction, so I learned everything,
So you've been
starting
building
with odd
shit
jobs.
since you were a kid. Like
Yeah.
So
you know how
you're
to do everything.
So you're a
to
man
build
of
house.
many hats.
In the practical side, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Like carpentry, you know how to build stuff. You know how to lay wiring. You know how to build
Jesus.
houses.
All the
plumbing.
Yeah, whether it's commercial or there's nothing that I look at that I say I can't do that.
Wow.
Wow.
And you learned all of that while being in that cult at a young age.
I learned some of the skills, but definitely the attitude was something I developed myself. Had a couple of mentors when
Right.
I was working that said, you can do anything you want to, and I believed it. At that point, it was within the context of supporting us and building what we're doing in order to support the group.
Mm-hmm.
I would have chosen a completely different career path.
It seems like this group is a little bit wealthy. No.
I don't know. We never really had wealth that I knew of. It was all spent on expansion.
But it's not personal wealth. You give up all
Yeah, yeah.
possessions when you enter, right?
But that's what
So
I
nothing
mean is
belongs
like
to you.
the group as a whole probably had a good amount of money, yeah. But it didn't. I mean, like you probably had to give it to the community, but you never
When
really.
we joined in 1980 or 81, it was deep poverty in northern Vermont. Like we ate the same thing every day, which was millet, basically bird food. And I got in trouble for stealing an orange once.
Whoa.
Because I was so
Famished.
desperate for
You were
food
fucking
that I
hungry,
wanted an
dude.
orange, and it was for the pregnant women. And
Fucking bird food?
Did they give you the rod, Jason?
that's a touchy one, but yes.
Okay. We don't have to go there.
Yeah.
No,
I read a lot about that, and that's something I wanted to maybe not necessarily ask about you.
So corporal punishment or child discipline was something that was supported then and preached and still is now, based on scripture.
Mm-hmm.
I don't agree with it now because I don't agree with the interpretation of scripture as it is societally now. But yes, we had teachings that entailed physical punishment with a rod or a paddle. The problem with my experience with that was when people administered their discipline with anger. And to me, that borderlined abuse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that abuse, I told you all about the raid that happened in '84, where
Well,
the state tried to come in and intervene.
we'd love to talk about that.
Well, it's like a shock collar for a dog.
There's a difference between discipline and abuse.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Like a shock collar for a dog. He runs away from the house, you shock him, right? You shock him till he comes back. But if you keep shocking him, even if he's there, now you're
Sadistic.
so now it's evil. Now you want pain.
Yeah.
You know, there's a difference.
There's a bit
between,
of like torture there.
There's a little bit between discipline and abuse.
And that's like, God damn, if I ever do this again, here comes the pain.
Yeah.
And which is what discipline is for. You're supposed to
Exactly.
be like, oh, I remember that slap on my ass.
Right.
I don't want that. Not
It's
like
uncomfortable. It's
I'm gonna
embarrassing.
shit my pants.
Right.
If I do this thing.
I'm gonna get the shit beat out of me.
Yeah, I'm gonna get the fucking shit kicked.
So
out
I
of me.
listen to people now. I was in a course this weekend, yoga workshop, and the mentor was talking about, he was an Army Ranger, and he talks about the authority figures when he was in the Army.
Mm-hmm.
They're his heroes. They administered discipline, punishment. He went somewhere. They had an objective. They taught him something. He looks at them, looks back, and has a warm, loving relationship with those people that were authority figures in his life. There are 0 people that were authority figures in my life as a child that I look back and don't have resentment for. I don't carry resentment because that's something that I don't agree with now.
Mm-hmm.
But there's nothing that I look back and say that person was genuine, had love and care, even though they brought the rod or they brought discipline or enforced some rules with me.
Wow.
And that's
Mostly because what happened was completely against my will, and for the most part I believed against my parents' will, and they had no say in what was happening.
they would just let other people dish
Yes.
out that discipline.
They had to.
Discipline.
Did your parents discipline you, or is it the elders?
I think everyone, right? It was everybody's
Everybody
job. It's a
did,
community.
but what my mom did, what my dad did, and what 25 to 100 other people did was completely different in a basis.
Got it. Did you ever, since you had doubt, did you ever convince somebody to doubt with you? To be like, yo, this isn't what it's supposed to be. This isn't
I had
normal.
a lot of discussions with friends growing up about questions, but
Right.
most of those discussions were pretty private and weren't supposed to be happening.
No, of course not.
Did you ever get anybody to, did you ever turn anyone?
No, because I ended up on the other side of a lot of those discussions.
Yeah.
Because at the same time of doubting, I also towed the line. I wanted everything to be true.
Oh, so, okay.
And I believed it. I had problems with situations, but I believed what we were doing. So when other people said this doesn't work for me, I would try to convince them of why and sell them the same thing that I was being sold, even though I didn't believe it.
Dude, so many
If that
subversive
doesn't,
elements, dude.
if that's not messed up, I don't know what is. But
And that's where we're going to leave right now.
And that connects to where I ultimately came to probably 15, 20 years later.
Yeah. And we're going to get to that right now. You, I'm assuming you did. We noticed that you tried to escape once. Did you ultimately escape this cult, or are you still an active member in this cult? Did you escape this cult?
By the time that I left it, it was less an escape than I felt when I was 18.
Okay.
That was an escape.
When I was 18, I took a walk, and I didn't know where I was going, and
you
didn't
ended up
plan
on a
on
plane.
coming back. I ended up going back a couple days later, a day later.
That conditioning.
Yes.
Come back home. They welcome you with open arms.
Oh yeah, probably.
No.
Oh okay.
No, I was in big trouble.
Oh yeah. Okay.
It was some of both, though. It was this eclectic mix of, like, I
Love and
remember
loathing.
pulling into the driveway. Like, I flew to Virginia it was Wednesday night when I took off. Thursday morning, I flew to Virginia. I spent the day with my uncle, and then Thursday night, he wanted me to call my parents and let them know I was okay. I didn't want to do that because I knew that if I called them, I would end up caving and going back.
Absolutely
I didn't
triggered.
have enough internal fortitude to go, no, this is my decision now, and that's what I want to do. I did call. I did go back. They drove all night long, picked me up, drove me home. We pulled in the driveway in Boston at about 5:30 Friday afternoon. In the middle of our most important Friday night was our like big gathering of the week where all the different houses in the area would all gather in one place. And everybody just kind of stared at me like, oh. Some people were like, oh, he's kind of a hero. And then some people were like, I can't believe you would sell out and do that to us. And then some people were just like, fuck you. Attitude. But I knew that I was going to have to go face all of it. And ultimately, if I humbled myself and apologized, and I would be okay and let back in. I didn't know it with that confidence then. At that point, I was desperate. I was like, oh no, I made a mistake. I got to do this. And
Completely ingratiated yourself.
yes.
Like, take me back, please. I'm so sorry. I made a mistake. It'll never happen again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In a like legit way.
Like
yeah,
self,
you meant it.
A lot of
You meant
self torment.
You
yeah.
meant
But
it. You were
all of
fucking
these
scared.
decisions have to do with going to hell or not.
Oh yeah. That's
like
what
when
you're
you
saying.
make the decision to leave, the fear
Mhm.
in the airplane was that God's going to do something to you because you
And
walked
Left.
away.
destroy this
Right.
plane with everyone on it because of me.
Yep.
Because of me. And they don't deserve to go. It's me. I'm the problem.
Well, ultimately, he would probably save them and not me, so I had to figure out a way to make that possible. But going back was more of a, oh, I shouldn't have done that.
I'm
That was
sorry.
really wrong. And nobody really knew what to say. Like, there was only like 1 out of 100 people that said anything.
Whoa.
Like, people just stared. And I walked through and ended up.
Because
they
now
had
they
a
doubt
big
you. They're
elders
going to doubt
meeting.
you forever.
No, they needed me because I was an influence.
An influence.
But you were 17, 18.
Were you an elder at that point?
No, I wasn't an elder, but I was a leader in the young people.
They looked up to you.
Yes.
You had power.
Influence,
Influence.
Okay, yeah.
which equals power.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that influence is something that over time
Influence is important.
Yeah.
ended up playing out in different ways through my young adulthood from that point forward until the 10 or
They were like,
15
if
years later when I did leave.
We can
in
make
earnest.
Jason come back. Look at this, guys. Jason came back. You know, Jason had his doubts.
And
Jason
I don't
came
know
back.
whoever
This
really
is
thought
the-
that or
They could
didn't.
use
But it's an
Everyone
unspoken
was,
thing. It doesn't have to be even explicitly said.
Yeah.
It's a, hey, you see this, guys?
Yeah.
He came back. You guys look up to him.
That's
You'll
the
stay
ultimate
if
question of
you'll stay if you know what's good for you.
from the
Yeah.
top now that I still have is, did he know or not know?
Who?
Was he thinking that way, or was it all this genuine thing?
Oh, so they were saying they didn't know if you were just acting on a limb, or is that what you're saying?
No, about the leader himself.
Oh,
Spriggs, like,
Spriggs?
yeah, like, did he know and orchestrate all of this and understand everything that was going on, or was it all this 100% genuine thing and like, oh my God, you strayed and now you're welcomed back and you shouldn't have done that and all of this? Or it was like, I knew he was going to come back.
I think
I
it's more the second one.
created this environment,
Yes.
and I
And
got
look
enough
what I have created.
fear.
He had a little bit of doubt, but he came right
It's
back.
so much
But he came
more
right back.
complex and invested into
Yes.
your emotions. It's so psychological. There are responses you can predict. Sure, there are the outliers, but that's why they call them outliers.
Yeah.
And they remain that way. For the most part,
So
you know.
I wasn't an outlier,
Yeah, you were the rule.
but I did outlier things.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
As you would
More
eventually
so
do.
as I grew a little bit older and did make myself into the leadership structure. And the leadership is not really defined per se. If you went and visited now and said, where's an elder? They would be like, I don't know. But if you're inside, you would know exactly who the elder is, and you'd be like, that's who's in authority and who's telling me what to do, and etc.
You have to be part of the infrastructure to know who's in charge.
Yes.
You have to be in the family.
There's no like if you're
They have to know who you are.
If you come from the outside, it's like, oh, we're
Yeah.
all equals. But once you're in there
Yeah.
and initiated, it's
The
like
hierarchy
no. There
comes out.
is
Yeah.
there is exists.
The hierarchy comes out.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's where my ultimate compromise, well, there was two aspects of my compromise that ultimately led to my final decision to leave and not go back. One compromise was with my children. I had children that started growing up. We had 4 kids in the group, and the oldest was between 8 and 10. The others were all 2 years younger. And my oldest son started asking questions, similar questions to what I had when I was 8 and 10 years old. And I remember the moment, I was in San Diego in the group we lived in out there, where he asked me something, and I just looked at him, and I knew I was going to give a bullshit answer, or I was going to say, I don't know. And I decided to say, I don't know. And then when I walked out of the room, I knew that I started to have to face myself with the I don't know. And could I continue to tell him to do something that I didn't know? The second was that I was an elder and I was a leader. And I was selling this bill of goods / gospel to other people. And I would go out and proactively do that, whether people came to me or we went out recruiting or reaching out evangelistically. There was a specific woman that joined in Southern California that I reached out to. There was a morning, it was Thanksgiving morning, and we didn't celebrate any holidays, and at that point we had stopped celebrating Thanksgiving, but we recognized that it was a national holiday, and we decided to have a meal to invite people to. Not for ourselves, not in honor of the holiday, just to go out and invite people to. I went out to the pier in Oceanside, California with a friend of mine, and we met a girl that was sitting on the pier that looked somewhere between attempting suicide or having already committed suicide. I didn't know which one. I didn't know if the body was alive when I met her. I didn't meet her, I walked by. Walked out to the end and I came back. And I sat down next to her. And I told her there was a place she could come home to. And in that moment, what I was extending was my genuineness.
Not recruiting. It was genuineness.
It was genuine. What I brought her home to was compromise. She ended up staying. She ended up joining the group. And 6 months later, I was completely ashamed of what she was subjected to, and I couldn't look her in the eyes anymore.
Because you felt like you should have left her on that bench or on that pier.
No, I wished that I actually had something to give her that was real.
Yeah.
Because she needed something at that moment. Her
And
life
you
is
sold to her
desperate.
this.
Yeah,
you
she would have
s-
taken anything.
Yeah, you sold her this
Yeah.
cult. Oh, man.
I didn't know what I was selling.
Yeah.
I was in something.
But ultimately-
when you're steeped in
but ultimately you did. You
RT,
sold it.
You don't know what
And it-
water is.
Yeah.
And
When
it
you
gave
become-
her, so you don't know the difference between poison and water, because if the poison keeps you alive a little bit longer, you like, that's some water.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's some water.
Might as well be water.
No, it's not. I just
Yeah.
poisoned the well.
I ended up leaving Southern California at that point and going back to Missouri where my family was, or
You're-
part of my family.
You guys moved around a lot.
Yes.
You moved around a lot.
So moving was for two reasons that I primarily saw, or three. One was for work-based. We had a national company, and we would start businesses or expand our business in areas around the country. Number two, you would start communities either where you wanted to go to establish a place or start a place after you worked there and wanted to stay. Number three was you would move disgruntled people as a means of diversion. So I have a problem here. I don't like this. What are we going to do? And they're like, well, why don't you move over here and go do this? And someone was asking about you coming here.
Is that what happened to you? They saw you as disgruntled?
Yeah.
They fucking
I
shuffled
called
your
it-
ass around.
I called out stuff all over the place. And
Yeah.
ultimately, I ended up in Germany at one point for a year and a half.
You low-key became like a virus.
But they didn't get
But
you
I was
away
also
with it.
necessary because I had influence over
Yeah.
No,
people.
that's what I'm saying.
He
You
was
you were like a
important.
necessary virus.
Well, not even a necessary like it's like he was a troublemaker, but he had power. It's like you with your charismatic personality, right? Like people know that you have this big personality, right? And with it
Yeah.
comes these consequences, sort of like these negative aspects, but with it also all these positive aspects. So you have to keep this figurehead around. They're integral to what you're doing.
Yeah.
There's a determining point with each person like that of their worth versus their liability.
And your worth always outweighed your liability.
Maybe by a little bit.
Oh man, that's
Because I
close.
was like, I was always riding the wheel of the bus. Now I like to call it. It's like,
Riding the wheel of the bus.
yeah, you're like strapped to the outside of the wheel and like
Yeah.
you feel like you just got squashed and all hell broke loose and things are horrible. And that next thing you know, you're like, oh, it's looking up, like everything's good and yeah, we're gonna do this and it's cool. And the next thing you know, you're like over the top, and then all of a sudden like someone starts questioning you, and then oh shit, here it comes, boom, oh fuck, the pavement again, and then clonk clonk clonk, and you spend your third there. And then after a while you start realizing and recognizing that you've been in this cycle before.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm another hamster in a cult.
Whoa.
Holy shit.
And I fought that for
Wow.
years. And I'm just going to say it just like it is because it's that raw. And that's what I had from the time that I was 15 until 33, 34 when I left and didn't go back. I always wondered if I was another hamster in the wheel and if I was just doing some other person's agenda
Wow.
and living it and supporting it, or if I was actually doing God's will, and if I left, I was going to pay with my life and my soul for it.
How'd you escape? Tell us about the escape.
So I wouldn't call it an escape.
Not
Okay.
the second time.
By the time I left the group, I had come to a clear definition in myself. I had enough guts to call out hypocrisy, mostly in the leadership. I abandoned the leadership myself, and I said, I'm not an elder, I'm a person. And if someone wants to call me an elder, they should stop, because we don't have an authority structure. We're a group of people that are all here for one cause, and if we're all doing that, we don't need an authority structure. So I'm not that. it didn't work that way. And there were a couple points with some specific things that we mentioned prior. And I finally got to the point that I said I couldn't continue. And I was willing to take the chance of walking out and taking my kids to do something different in spite of whatever the risks were. The first risk was that my wife wouldn't leave with me, that I had attempted to walk out. I had tried to convince her to go for the 10 years that we were married in the group.
And she was born into 12 tribes, yes?
Yes. She was born, and my parents joined when I was 6.
And you knew her for all of her life?
Yes.
Did she have doubt, or did you convince her to have doubt?
She didn't have doubt until we left.
Not even when you left, after you left?
No, she decided when I finally made my decision.
She decided at that point.
Yes. I
Wow.
told her that I was leaving, taking the kids with or without her, and it was her choice, and she had 48 hours to let me know.
Mm.
And she decided to go. The doubt came after.
Okay.
My doubt continued after that moment for a long period of time. Hers started and ended very quickly after we physically left. There was a few months of where she asked for some time to visit her family before we left, because once you go, you're pretty
Yeah.
much exiled,
Yeah.
blacklisted. I said yes, we did that. Everyone tried to convince her to stay, demonized me, and then ultimately one day we kind of got the boot, because I was there still going to the group meetings, but I was excommunicated, still existing there. She was there, so I was cut off. I was blacklisted. Only certain people would talk to me or were allowed to, but I would still stand up and call out hypocrisy.
Holy shit.
Jeez.
What was your wife's name?
Abby.
Abby.
Yeah.
You guys must have been absolutely, through all this, escaping and these impossible odds, defying all the odds. Your guys' relationship must have been strong as a rock, right?
No, it wasn't. It was the opposite.
Oh, wow.
We held on to each other for dear life, but our relationship was shaky as anything. That played itself out after we
Left.
left and started our life.
Chapter 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, I told someone the other day it was like 6 kids walking out of a cult, but 2 were responsible for the other
4.
Holy shit, dude.
So
That's so true.
we
So fucking
learn
true.
life by living life.
Yeah.
And there's no other way to do it. No matter what you have, where you go, you have to learn by experience. We push against that. We want everyone to be perfect. We want ideals.
You
from
want
the
everybody
time
to
their
know what you're to
childhood.
do.
You want everybody to know what to do.
Yeah.
We
What
don't
do I
need it.
do?
Yeah.
We were the epitome of the opposite. So when we walked out, nothing that we had learned previously or any of our previous experiences were relative to what we were doing currently.
So you guys almost drifted. No?
We had never gone to public school, knew what public school was. We had 4 kids. They were 4, 6, 8, and 10. Started homeschooling them. Didn't have much of an education ourselves, or the little bit that we had was very religiously oriented. I started making a living, which was what I wanted to do and have the opportunity to provide for my family. And we sent the kids to public school, walked in the first day that we signed them up, had no idea what the school system was, anything about life.
Holy
That
The
it's got to be
first day
so
of school.
overwhelming.
Dude, that's
That was on a
Scary.
Thursday and Friday. And then Monday
That's
morning we sat at our house and the kids were getting ready to go to school. It was 3 of them, all in elementary school at that point. The youngest wasn't in. The bus came. We asked the kids if they wanted to ride the first day, and they said, no, we'll take the bus. And then we asked them if they wanted us to walk them out to the bus stop, and they said, no, we've got this.
Damn, dude.
That was the first time where I realized that life is different.
Wow. That was the moment, huh?
That was one of the moments. There was
This is the
many
first day?
moments.
So you're talking about their first day?
Their first day of school.
It's like they were already ready to conform to something other than
And
group.
what they
like,
were-
Yes.
They were
Exactly.
more.
They
more-
embraced it 100%
They're like, let's hit the
wholeheartedly.
ground running. They're like,
let's
no,
let's get
you
this going, dude.
like,
I didn't like that shit in the back
And
anyways.
then the family dynamics were that I spent 6 months to a year wondering if I had done the right thing, like still quivering.
You
and-
still had this internal
Yeah.
conflict.
Your
and
kids are
fear.
already making friends at school and shit, and you're like,
You're still
in a short
reeling.
time after
Existential
that,
crisis.
my wife called me at work one day and said, I want to go to college. And I was like,
What?
cool, go.
yeah, can we?
And she said, what do I do? Because she knew nothing other than what came from me. I had to inspire or instigate everything.
So she was severely uneducated at this time.
We all were.
It was a very chauvinistic
Yeah.
group, right? Nicole.
Yes, absolutely chauvinistic.
Yeah.
So I said, completely supportive of the decision and intensely insecure of the position that I was in. I said, there's one up the street. Why don't you go find out? She said, can you go with me? I said, no. I said no because I didn't know anything about it. I couldn't lead her to someplace I'd never been. Well, she walked up to college, walked in the door, said it to the lady at the front desk, I want to go to college. And she was like, admissions is that way. She walked down the hall, went to admissions and said, I want to go to college. And they were like, okay, sure. Asked her for her diploma. She said, what's that? They said, what you get when you graduate high school? And she was like, I didn't go to high school.
Mm.
And they said, well, you'll need a GED. She said, what's that? And then they all looked at each other and they said, we'll help you get one. And they spent the next 6 to 8 weeks. Each lady in the office took turns mentoring her as she studied for her GED.
This total stranger, Dave, out of nowhere.
The intuition and the kindness of
Yeah.
strangers.
So it was actually a lady
Wow.
named Lynn
That's powerful.
that headed it up, and she ran the financial aid office. Lady from Maine, salt of the earth.
Maine's a good state.
Yep.
Grandma,
And she
rest
got
in
it all
peace.
going, and 6 weeks later, she got her GED and started going. It was a local community college, doing her general studies, and she got a job 2 weeks later there in the financial aid office, and a year later, she was running it when the lady retired. But the point was that she became her own person with independence and stability much faster than I did. That became a threat to me personally.
Because you had
You were-
convinced her to leave. And you
Yes.
were supposed to adapt quicker than she
You got a little
And
envious.
she found, yeah, absolutely. She found her footing so quickly.
So quickly.
I didn't realize what that was then.
Yeah.
It was more, I was so lost in myself, I couldn't really see anything else. Like, I was drowning, the water was at the top of my head. I wasn't looking like up above to see what was going on with anybody else.
Yeah.
And I supported that, and I did support it. I wanted her to have an education. It
Of
was
course.
all the ideals I wanted, but I had no idea how to get from the point of where I was at in our relationship, which was me controlling and doing and saying and directing, to her having any sort of independence and inspiration of where to go and what to do and how to do it. The one thing we did is we hung on to each other. As difficult as things became from that point and moving forward, we would come back and talk to each other about our experience as if it was something other than our personal experience, almost like a third party.
Like a disassociation.
Yeah.
Yes. Our relationship was related to something other than the two of us.
Say that again. Say that what you just said.
Our
again.
relationship was something outside of the two of us, which now I kind of look at and I was like, that was actually really cool, because
Another
the relationship is
Yeah.
another entity.
Yeah.
You and I have a relationship, Dave. I come to your restaurant, we talk, we've built a
We serve you
relationship.
libations.
Our
yes.
relationship is completely different than the individual aspect of you and myself.
Ooh, that's
Okay.
interesting. Yeah.
It's another,
You're absolutely correct.
it's a division.
It's an
Yeah.
LLC between us.
Yes.
Yeah.
A marriage is that way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or any other relationship. A
But-
boyfriend, girlfriend,
But when
whatever
you
that
enter
is.
into that, you don't always look at it that way. You think
No.
it's you own a piece of me, or I have a piece of me invested in each other.
No, we became one person, and we were inseparable, and we had no individual instability between the two of us.
You both leaned on each other heavily.
The high codependency.
Yeah.
in extreme,
Extremely.
extreme codependency.
Yeah.
You had no
So the
identities.
first therapist
You had
that
no
we saw-
identities apart.
I mean, yeah. Think of like two children
Right.
leaving a commune. You
Yeah.
know.
We were children.
You were.
They
Mentally, you were
adults.
children.
She
Yeah.
was 29, I was 33.
Holy shit.
And we were kids. Inside.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Any experiences we had were ones that we were leaving and running away from. So not only did we have nothing, anything that we did have, we were shoving away in order to start something new.
Hmm.
So nothing before, even morally, had a relevance to what we were doing now. And that played itself out kind of in odd ways as we moved forward.
Right.
One of them was fairly quickly, I got a job, and a decent job, ended up working in DC. And it was in the construction industry, but the higher end aspect of it.
So it was lucrative.
Well, I made twice as much as I was before
so
working in my previous job.
then
So
it
yes,
was severely monetary. Yes, there you go.
it was monetary, but then I also had connections. I was doing
Exactly.
high-profile projects, and
Right.
then I worked with some moderately profiled people. And more than that, I worked with a bunch of young women
Yeah.
that I had never been around independent women before in my life.
Wow. That was a whole new, just dating in general, or, you know, trying to speak to women in general, or vice versa, is hard. Just in general, dating is hard. You have never even seen a single woman outside of where you grew up, and that is
I had seen, but not interacted.
But not
other than
interacted
in the
on a-
context
correct.
of the group.
Correct.
So any interaction was, oh, you should come join us and leave your life and
right.
do what we're doing.
Exactly. There was
No
no
real life
Yeah, there was no
experience.
like connection at all. There was no base to touch. Yeah, that's wow. So you were in this. So
I came home one day
Right.
from work and I was like, hey, like, what's it like at college? Like, do guys hit on you?
Yeah.
And she was like, yeah, like all the professors and all the students. Like,
So she knew it. She knew
Absolutely.
she knew she was an attractive woman.
but she was much more in tune with it and okay with everything.
oh, she started
where
to
I was
embrace
really
it.
insecure.
She started to embrace it.
Yeah,
You
she-
were still like,
She was like, yeah, I marched through the college
and I'm gorgeous.
I
babe.
wear short skirts when I need to pass exams. And I was like,
Whoa,
what type
so
of exams?
That's very interesting. She progressed at a much rapid rate than
Yes.
you did in society and mentally.
Yes.
Wow.
That was an issue with you, right?
Yeah, that
My-
bothered you.
It bothered me that I wasn't okay with myself.
Yeah.
And because I wasn't okay with myself, I wasn't okay with her being herself.
Yeah.
That
Because
became
you could see her slipping almost, like you were like not going to be good enough at some point. Yeah. Like she
that
was out.
ultimately happened, but I let go of that because I knew that at some point I couldn't hang on to it long enough that it was going to do anything for me. So it was this really weird mix of, I know she's going, And at some point, I won't be able to do anything about it, but I hope I'm far enough ahead on the trains of the car that I won't fall off and land on the tracks.
Hey guys, this is Agent Skidge here. Due to the length and nature of this recording, we have split this episode into 2 parts. You can find the second installment of this episode wherever you listen to your podcast now. Listen to find out what happens next.
This show was written and produced by David McFarland and Tyler Skidgel. Special thanks to our editor, Charlie Ross. If you want to stay in the loop and not miss out on when the next adventure is happening, follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Intangible Adventures, and subscribe to us wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you have an extra moment, please rate us and review us. We would love to hear your feedback about what you think about our show. You can also email us directly at secretrecipe@intangibleadventures.com. As always, thank you for joining us on our latest Intangible Adventures, and we'll see you guys next time.